just double click on the original layer and it will unlock it, and then add a white layer beneath it. So click on your main photo layer and we're going to work from this. First step is to remove the background, and we're going to do that with the good old-fashioned magic wand. When you're dealing with silvers, you want your tolerance to be on 8. Maybe sometimes you can get away with 10, but it starts leaking into the silvers and into the diamonds. I'm just going to start clicking around the image, and you can already tell that, that does a great job selecting. We have a little bit of spill in this area, and that's okay. We're going to go back to it. Don't worry about it for now. Just let's click and remove the background. I'm going to undo that since it's spilled. I'm going to grab the lasso tool and minus select any overflow, and let's add select by holding the shift and clicking any areas that were not grabbed, like this on the edge here. So we're going to hold down Option to unselect the areas that it spilt over. Usually it's in the silver areas or the diamond areas. Now, just in case we have some dust or something in the majority of this white space that we didn't get with the magic wand, I just take the marquee tool, shortcut M, and I hold down Shift and click to make sure everything that I can't see has gotten selected. All right, so now that we have our selection, we want to select and mask. On the older versions of Photoshop, it's called Refine. I think it's called Refine Edge. So over here I have my smooth set to around 8. What this does is it just kind of smooths out the pixel, the jagged edges created by selecting the pixels. Hit OK. And we are just going to hit delete now. Because we have the white layer beneath it, it just fills that in automatically. Now we have the jewelry piece on its own layer. So I'm going to deselect. Next is to create a hue sat adjustment layer above our layer, our ring layer. And we want to click this little hand icon right here. I have mine automatically, it automatically has it selected as an option. So what we want to do now is remove the warm tone in the silver and in the diamonds. Clients usually like their silver to be completely desaturated of warm tones, but that does not mean just completely desaturated. You can tell a difference when you just completely take out all the color versus just the warm. So with our hand selected, we're going to take this dropper and we're just going to click and drag to the left. What that dropper does, it's going to select the main color, which is, you can tell it's selecting the yellows. Right here it says yellow, so that's going to take down our warmth. And if you want to zoom in, you can see there's also some reds and orange in here. We want to get that out as well. So I'm going to click on one of these areas and drag to the left. See, now it's selecting the reds, and you can tell because it says right here. And I'm going to take that all the way down as well. So there you go. Now our diamond is free of this warmth, and our silver is free of this warmth, yellow and red tones. You want to click it on and off to make sure it's not affecting the gem, because the gem color is pretty accurate. And so it looks good. If we did have to layer mask it out, it works. The hue saturation adjustment layer works just like layer masking. All right, so next step is, now that we've put the ring on a pure white background and taken the color out of the silver looks a little down. It looks a little grayish. We're going to give it a little more pop to it. So we're going to do a levels adjustment layer. So you just click that, and now we have levels here. Good thing about adjustment layers is that it's not applying it to the original layer, it's applying it to all the layers beneath it, which is only this layer. But if we want to go back or undo it, we can. We're not affecting the original layer at all. So now that we've got our levels adjustment layer, we want to just bring up the highlights just a little bit in these gray areas. So I know it kind of looks a little blown out right now, but that's all right. We're going to go back in and only paint it in where we want it. So that's about good right there. I might increase the blacks a little, bring back some of that tone. Good. All right, so now I'm going to hit Option, Delete, and that's going to fill my layer with black, which is in the foreground. So let's do that. So now it has that effect hidden. So now we're going to paint back in with white where I want it to reveal what we just did, which was the levels adjustment layer. So we're going to fill it back in here. It brings a little bit more shine there. Takes away some of the gray so it looks a little less flat and matches now our overall exposure to the pure white background. So I'm basically painting it back in almost everywhere besides the edges, because the edges tend to make it look a little more too blown out. I'm going to keep that our edge there. And you know, I'm going to paint this in on the diamonds too, because they can always use a little bit of pop. In the diamonds, we want to have them more white and a little bit of black, less gray, less overall gray tone, but we'll do another levels adjustment layer for that in a second. All right, so to show you what that levels did, took it from this kind of a dull gray to more of a shiny silver. That's the look we're going for. So the next step would be, since we're still working on the band of the ring, let's just finish this up completely. I'm going to go back down to my original layer and let's just duplicate it to be safe, since we're going to be working directly on it. And I'm going to start cleaning up these little spots of dirt here and there with the spot healing tool. So the way that works is you just hold down Option, select the clean area that matches the texture that we're trying to clone. So we're going to clone from here, and you can see with the crosshair, that's where it's cloning from or healing from. So let's just clean this up real quick. So this right here, I always take away. This is the reflection of the under part of the ring, but it's very distracting. So the best way to do this, honestly, I find, is just using the clone stamp tool with a soft edge. And I just clone from above, paint it in. Let's increase the brush size a little bit so it can get a little softer. There, so it's a lot better. Now we got this rough edge here. Let's just clean that up with the healing tool. There we go. I'm going to go back to the clone stamp and at 50% opacity, I'm going to clone from over here, just kind of blend this a little bit better. Let's see what our results look like before. Busy, messy ring, band. Now it's a lot cleaner. It could be a little bit better. I'm just going to show you quickly though how I do it. All right, so let's move on. All right, so next let's enhance this gem here. So the way we're going to do that is with another levels adjustment. So we're just going to click levels adjustment again. And so since the ring was shot with white all around it, if you saw my setup, there's white all around it, a little bit of a silver around it too. Basically, the color gets desaturated. So the color lies in the blacks and the midtones. So we want to bring those back up. So I'm going to bring our blacks up by sliding it in here. Now, what you'll have to pay attention to is that the overall tone starts getting darker when we start adjusting the mid-tone here and the blacks. So we want to bring back up the highlights to counteract that. Now, I know the ring's getting blown out, the band. Don't worry about that. This is just for the gem. So, all right, now that that's been done, let's hide the effects by hitting Command Delete, which will fill our layer with black, and black hides our adjustment layers. White reveals it. And now we're going to paint it back in with the brush tool, shortcut B, with white as our foreground layer. All right, so let's see what this did for us. Flat, kind of milky, rich and deep. And that is what we're going for right there. We can even take it another step further. You can see the table of the gem is still a little flat. Let's go ahead and select that with our lasso tool. All right, there we go. So we're going to create another levels adjustment with our selection. Notice in the layer palette, it only created a reveal layer with what we selected, which is what we want. So now let's do exactly what we just did with the midtones. There we go. So now the table looks a little better. Before, after. All right, so now we've got this pixel bleed again where our selection overlapped a little. We're going to have to go in. Let's apply these layers by merging it. I have all three of them selected. I'm just going to hit Command E and I'll put them all together. So now we have our gem results on one layer along with our band results on one layer. So I'm just going to use the clone stamp and try to clone out this dark line. The camera picks up almost too much detail. So I'm just removing these with the healing tool. Sometimes you're not exactly sure if it's imperfection or not. If you're unsure, ask yourself, well, does it make it look better? If the answer is no, get rid of it. That did not make it look better. This looks like some kind of a imperfection over here. Does it make it look better? No, let's get rid of it. Some of my clients don't like to see all the way through the gem like we are here. So one way we can do that is use the quick select tool. Usually works well and it highlights, selects the area that I'm trying to get rid of. Let's keep this area here. All right. I'm just gonna fine tune this selection a little bit. All right, we want to make sure it selects more than the area we're trying to get rid of, so we don't have this lighter edge once we bring in the darker elements of the gem. All right, there we go. We're going to select and mask so we have a smooth edge. Always select and mask after a selection tool. So now with my lasso tool selected or any selection tool selected, I can move the selection without it affecting the actual piece. So now I'm just going to try to find an area that I want to put into the white area. Something that's kind of unique. It won't be obvious we copied and pasted it or something like that. So sometimes I will come up here to select and transform selection. So I'll rotate it 180, hit enter. I hit command copy and paste. So now I have this piece here that I can fit in nicely right there. And I'll just nudge it into place. There we go. So it looks a little weird right now. That's because it should naturally be a little bit lighter. So I'm just going to take the opacity down on the layer to the desired lightness. There we go, that looks good. So before it was here, seeing straight through, after, a little richer. So same thing, we got this pixel bleed here around the edge. Let's just nudge it in place a little better, as best we can. Now I'm gonna merge this layer with the gem so I can clean up the edge with the stamp tool like we did before. All right, I would call that done for our gem. Gem looks great. Diamonds could use a little levels. We're gonna do levels adjustment again. A lot of leveling adjustments in jewelry. So I'm just gonna take the blacks and slide them up. Notice the difference here. The diamonds kind of look foggy. And we increase the blacks. Now I feel like they're harder and clearer. I can see right through them. That's great. All I did was increase the blacks. The whites are great. So I'm going to hit Command Delete because that's going to fill my layer with black so I can hide what we just did. Now I'm going to take the brush tool with white selected in the foreground and paint it in where I want that effect done, which is only in the diamonds. Before, after, a lot clearer. It even brings out the color in this, it's called fire here, when the diamond naturally separates the light and shows you color. Now this blue right here, we want to get rid of. It's actually just seeing the gem. So let's just do a hue sat layer, select it here, take it down. There's a little bit more. It's fine. Now we're going to hide it, Command Delete, and just reveal it with brush tool white. I'm just going to get rid of the blue that's in the diamond that's just seeing the gem. So I'm good with all these. Let's merge these together just to simplify our layers palette. Before and after. So I just simplified our layers palette, and this is what we started with. This is what you would expect it to look like. Clean but natural, not overly cleaned up. All right, next step would be to smart sharpen. It just gives a huge pop to the jewelry. So filter, smart sharpen. I just like the look of the smart sharpen better than the unsharp mask. So if you zoom out in the preview thumbnail, you can click and it'll show you what it looks like right now and then the results. So that looks pretty good. 200% around 2.4 radius. Good, we're looking great. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to merge that. We only need the one layer. I'm going to duplicate it, Command J, and then I'm going to flip it vertically for the reflection. Edit, transform, flip vertically. I have my shortcut set up to Shift Command V because I do this so much. I'm going to click and hold Shift and drag it straight down on one axis. You want to line up the band to the bottom of the band. Hit Option, add layer mask, that's going to hide it. Hit B for brush, that's going to grab your brush tool. Hold down Shift and make your hardness 0. You can adjust the hardness by Shift, right bracket or left bracket. That will make your brush bigger or smaller, and then if you hold down Shift, it'll make it harder or softer. So now we're gonna just paint in about half of that reflection. And there you go, now we have a reflective surface. And that is it, we are done. Okay, if you have any questions, comment below. Let me know what you think.